In the previous video, we were able to prepare the data for our app, and we did that mainly in the data file under config. So we prepared all the data that we'll need for this app. So in this video, we'll go ahead to create our very first screen, and that is the home screen. So the screen we have here is a target for this video. So by the end of this video, we should have this screen in our application. We'll start this work by creating a stack navigator for the home tab here. So this stack navigator will house all the screens that will fall under this home tab. So under navigators, we'll create a new file, and this we'll call home stack. And in this file, we'll create the home stack component. And then we can export this as the default. Now to create the stack itself, we import the create stack navigator function. So we import create stack navigator from React navigation stack, and then we'll create the stack. And then using this stack, we'll create the navigator here. So we'll return the stack.navigator. And inside this, we'll have our screen. So we'll have the stack.screen. And over here, the first screen will be the home screen. So we can import that as well. So we import home from our screens. And then for this screen, the name will be home screen. Then the component will be the home screen we've imported. Now we go to our root tabs, and we can find that under the navigators. And over here, we import the home stack. So we import the home stack like so, and then we replace the home screen here with the home stack. So instead of home, we'll have home stack. And this should change what we have on the screen now. Now we can go back to the home stack. To this screen, we'll pass the option parameter. And then we set the title of the page to wind up. And then to the navigator here, we pass the screen options. Here we can start styling the title over here. So first of all, we'll align the title. So header title, align to the center. Also set a color for the title here. So for that, we'll bring in our colors. So we import colors from our theme file. And then header tint color. That will be colors.tint. So this will affect whatever comes into the header here. Also for the back button, that will be appearing on the page here when we navigate to another screen inside the same home tab here. We want to style it a bit, just like we did for the onboarding stack. So if we go back to the onboarding stack here, we see that we have some properties related to the header left. So these are the header back image, the header left container style, and also the header back title visible. So we copy these three properties, and then we go back to the home stack, and then we paste them here like so. Now on iOS cannot be found, so we import it from our constants. So we import on iOS from our constants like so. And also the feather icon here is not available, so we import feather from @Expo vector icons. Now finally, let's style the header itself. So after this, we'll pass a header style. First of all, we'll set a background color, and we'll set this to our primary color. Now usually on some devices, there will be a border at the bottom which we don't want. So we'll set border bottom width to 0, and also we'll set elevation to 0. This will get rid of any shadow at the bottom on Android. But on iOS, you have to set the shadow color to transparent, and also shadow opacity to 0. Once we have this set up, let's go to the home screen itself. So we can find the home screen under screens in the home.js file. Over here, the very first component we like to return is our scrollable main container that we created. So at the top, in addition to the style text, we bring scrollable main container and then replace the view here with scrollable main container. For now, I can get rid of all the text in here, like so. Now for the style of the scrollable main container, we'll pass it through the content container style, like so. And over here, we don't need all of these, but we'll just set padding at the top of 5 and also padding at the bottom of 25. Now, when we have a look at our images, we see that at the very top, we have a header here, which is saying current dues. And if you look at it carefully, the same header appears a couple more times. That is the popular and also the collection. So for this, we'll create a component for it and we'll prepare it in such a way that when it is needed, we can have another text at the right here, which will be a link that will lead to another page. So let's go back and create that component. So create that under our component, the text directory, and we'll call this section header. Here we create the function component for the section header. And then we can export it at the bottom, like so. And then over here, we'll return our fragment. Now to see the output of what we are doing, let's go to the home file. And before we go to the home file, let's export this section header in the index file under components. So over here, inside this index file, we import section header, then export it once again. And back in the home file, we import section header. You can import it from the components. Then at the top, we use our section header. And as we saw in the image, the text says current dues. So we can put that here, current dues. So back in the section header, we import the view from React Native. In addition to this, we'll need a style sheet. And also we import the text component we created. So import style text. So the very main thing we'll return is the view component. And inside this, we'll have our style text. For the style text, it will take the children property that is passed to the section header. So over here, we destructure the children. Then we pass that to the style text. Once we do that, we should see the current dues. Now below this, let's create our style sheet. For the outermost view, we'll give it a style of container. So for this, we pass it through the style property and then want to make it an array. So first, it receives the styles.container. And then for any other style that is passed to this section header, we want to pass it to the view. So for that, we'll call a style and then that will be destructured as well from the component like so. Now for the text, all we'll do here is to make it bold. Now going back to our image, for the sections with the text at the right, which is linking to another page, to receive a few more properties. So back on the home page, let's copy and paste the section header a few more times. Then the second one will be changed to popular. And for the last one, the text to be our collection. So we'll change this to our collection. Now for these two sections, we'll pass the right text property. So in this case, the text was saying view all. And that'll be the same for our collection as well. Also, another property we'll pass will be the function to call when the link is pressed. So over here, that'll be in right text on press. And for now, we'll just put an empty function like so. And that'll be passed to the second section as well. So now back in the section header, we destructure these two properties from the props. So right text and also right text on press. So now for this right text, we'll bring in the touchable opacity from React Native. And then below the style text, we'll first check whether we received the right text property. So if the right text property is received, we'll return a touchable opacity. Now this touchable opacity will use the style text. And then the content will be the right text. Now the touchable will receive the right text on press property through the on press property. And then for the styling, we'll style this with the styles.button because this text is serving as a button. And for the text itself, it will be styles.button text. So continuing with our container style over here, this will have a flex direction of row. And then we'll justify the content to have a space between them. Next, we'll handle the button itself. And then after this, we'll have the button text. For the button text, all we'll have here is the color. And then we'll set it to our tertiary color. And then we'll lighten it a bit. Now we don't have our colors imported in this component. So at the top, we import colors from our theme file. Then we see that it's light a bit. Now having a quick look at our image here, we see that after the view or text, there is an arrow. So for this arrow, we'll bring it from ant design. So let's import ant design from Expo vector icons. And then just after the style text here, we'll render the ant design. The name of the icon we'll be using is arrow right. And then the size will be 16. And also we'll give it the same style as the text. So we'll give it a space, and then we can copy and paste the style here. To get this running, let's reload. Now we see the icon and it is having the same color as the view or text. To align the text and the arrow inside the button style here, we set flex direction to row once again. And then we'll align the items to the center to align them in the middle like so. Now to have some space in between the text and the arrow, let's concatenate an empty space to the right text over here. So over here, we'll concatenate an empty string like so. So that I'll have some space between the text and the arrow. Now this sums up the work for the section header. So we can save this and go back to the home file. Over here, the next you want to do is to have some spacing around the content on the page, specifically the section headers here. So we'll create a style here, which we'll call header. And for this, we'll first give it a padding horizontal of 25. Also give it a margin at the top of 20 and then a margin at the bottom of 15. Now we pass this style to our headers. So starting with the current deal, pass it through the style property, that's styles.header. Then we can copy the style and paste it here and then apply it to the last one as well. The next section we'll be handling will be the current deals section. So if you have a look at the image, we see that we have a list of scrollable cards. They are scrolling to the right. So we'll create a component for the card here and we'll use a flat list to render it for each of the items in the data. So for this component, we'll create it under component in a new directory we'll call cards. Now this component we'll call display card. Then over here, we'll create the component. Then we export as the default. Inside this, let's quickly display a text. So let's bring in our styled text. So we import our styled text. And then let's return the styled text and just display card like so. And then we go to the index file under components. And then we import the display card. Then export it again. Now we go back to the home page. Then at the top, we bring in the display card. And then below this, as I said earlier, we'll be making use of the flat list. So the flat list, we will get it from React Native. So below the section header here, we render the flat list. This will take a data property. And then using the function that we created in the previous episode, that is the getWineData, we'll be able to fetch the data that we need. And we can specify that we want the current deals. So over here, we'll call the getWineData. And then we'll pass our object. Now over here, we specify that we want the data with deal equals true. So to return our current deals for us. And then after this, we'll pass the render item. Now this will take a function and then the return will be our display card. So here is where we pass our display card. So we can see that the display card is being rendered 3 times. So meaning we have 3 items in our current deals. And over here, this function will have access to the content of the data. So here we do structure item. And then we spread the item onto the display card like so. We'll pass a few more properties in a bit, but now let's continue our display card. Now the display card we are working with here is a touchable. So the user can press on this whole card here to see the details of the particular product like so. So over here, the first thing we import is the touchable opacity. So we import touchable opacity from React Native like so. And also we'll need the view. So we'll bring that one as well. And then we'll bring in the style sheet. So in the return of the display card, the first component will return the touchable opacity. And inside this, we'll have a view. Now this view will contain all the text components that we have over here. Then we'll have another component for the image. So over here, we'll have a style text property. And the first value to be displayed will be the name of the product. Now this is a property that we'll be getting from the props. Since in the home page, we spread the item onto the display card. So over here, we can destructure the name like so, and then it should be displayed. So now we have 3 products. Now when we style this, We'll give it a style of styles.text. Now to get rid of this error, let's create our style sheet. Style sheet.create. Then we'll handle the styles in a bit. Now let's copy and paste this style text 3 more times. And also, in addition to the name, we bring in the origin, the year, the currency, and also the price. Now the next value will be origin. And then we'll have the year. And then we'll have currency plus price. Now for the name, you want it to be a big text. And also want to limit the number of lines it covers. So we'll set the number of lines property and give it a value of 2. For the origin and the year, we want it to be small text. The price will also be a big text as well. Now the touchable opacity will receive the container style. And then the view will also receive the details. So now let's style it a bit, starting with the container. Now for the container, that is the whole card itself, we want the dimensions to be a fraction of the size of the screen. So for this, we bring in the width of the screen. This is something that we define in our constants. So we import screen width from our constant file. Then inside here in the container, we set the width to be screen width times 0.67. That is 67% of the width of the screen. And also we'll set the height to be 43%. Now in addition to these dimensions, I want to give it a minimum height and a minimum width, so that if we're on a device with a very small width, it doesn't compress and then destroy the design of our card. So we'll give it a minimum width of 250 and then a minimum height of 160. Now after this, we set a background color. So we'll get it from our colors file. Then we lighten it a bit. Now this colors file has been imported for us automatically from our theme. Now after this, we give it a border radius of 25. Also give it a margin at the top of 45. Now also give it a margin at the right of 25. And then for the content, we set a flex direction of row. Now for the details in the card, we set it to take 70% of the width of the card. So we'll give it a width of 70% so that the remaining 30% will be used by the image. Also, we'll give it a padding of 15. Then we'll justify the content to have space around it. Now let's start the text itself. Over here, we'll set the color of the text to our secondary color. Now going back to our image, we have all the text content now. The only thing remaining is the image of the product. The image can also be gotten from the props. So first of all, we destructure it from the props. And also we bring in the image component from React Native. Now render this image just below the view. And then for the source of the image, we pass the image we received like so. In addition, we'll style the image and we'll use styles.image like so. Now at the bottom, you can add the image style. So the concept of what you are going to do is that we'll shrink the size of the image to fit in the right side of the card. So first of all, we'll give it a width of 30%. Remember the details, that is the text content, is taking up 70% of the width. So the remaining 30 is given to the image. Now for the height of the image, if you look at our screen here, it's taller than the card. So we want to give it a height taller than the card that we have here. So we'll give it a height of 120%. And then we'll move it to be above the card. So we'll give it a top of -45. So now we've achieved the look that we have on our display here. Now that we've done this, what is remaining is to handle the onPress property. That is when this card is pressed. But for now, the screen that we'll be navigating to is not ready. So what we can do here is to alert the ID of the product that is clicked on. So in addition to the properties here, we'll structure the ID. Then we'll create a function which will handle the presses. So we'll call this handle onPress. And all we'll do here is to alert the ID. Then we'll pass this to the onPress property of the touchable opacity. So now if I press on the first product, I get 2. Then the next one is 3. The last one is 7. So once we are ready to be transitioning to the details page, we can pass this ID along. Now with this done, let's go back to the home screen. And then to our flat list. Now the next thing we need to do here is to get an ID for each of the cards we are displaying. Whenever we are displaying a list of items, React requires us to have an ID for each of the items. So over here, we'll have a key extractor. Now this function will be able to extract the key from the data that we are rendering. So over here, this function will have access to the details of the item. So meaning we can destructure the ID over here. And then id.toString. Next, we pass the horizontal property. Then we set the value to true. This will convert our items to the horizontal format. Now to hide the scroll bar that we are seeing at the bottom, we'll set shows horizontal scroll indicator to false. So we'll no longer be seeing the scroll bar at the bottom. Next, we'll pass a content container style. And in this style, we'll give it some padding at the left. So give it a padding of 25. So now we see that our content is aligned to the text on the page. In addition, we'll give it a margin at the bottom of 10 pixels. Now that we are done with the current deals, we have a look at our screen here, and then we'll go to the popular section. So once again, we'll create a component that will render each of the products here. And similarly to the display card, we'll create it under the cards directory under component. So this we'll call product card. Now the product card will be quite similar to the display card. So we can copy the content of the display card, select all of it, and then paste it in the product card. And then we start by changing the name of the component from display card to product card. And then we do the same for the export at the bottom, like so. Now back on the home page, let's copy the flat list here and paste it below the popular section. Now we need to change this to the product card. So over here under components, we go to the index file and then we import the product card. And then we export it like so. And then back on the home, we import the product card as well. and then we replace the display card here with product card. The output will still be the same, but now we are using the appropriate component. Now back in the product card component, let's start making some changes. If we look at the screen we are working with, we only have two properties here. That is the name of the product and then the price. So back in the product card component, we are keeping the name, but we are getting rid of the origin and the year. For the name, we'll keep the style here, but now we want a small text instead. The number of lines too will stay the same. Also for the currency, we don't need a big text, but we just want it to be bold. And then for the image, we want it to be at the top instead. So we cut this and paste it just before the view. Now let's go to the bottom and adjust the styling. So first of all, for the width, we are changing it to 36% of the screen. And then we change the height to 46%. Now the minimum width will be changed to 135. And then the minimum height will be 173. Now the background color will be changed to our secondary color. Then we reduce the border radius to 15. For the margin at the top, we'll increase it to 60. The margin at the right will stay at 25, but we don't need the flex direction property. We'll add one more property in a bit. For the details, we'll no longer specify the width, but rather the height. So we'll give it a height of 50. Now for the padding, we'll reduce it to 10. And for justifying the content, we'll change it to flex end. Then we'll align the items to the center. Now at the moment, we don't see any changes here because of the color of the text and also the image. So first of all, let's get rid of the color of the text here. And then let's change the styling of the image. Now for our image, instead of the width being 30%, we'll change it to 100%. And for the height, I want it to be slightly shorter than the container. So we'll change the height to 87%. Now for the top property, we want it to move a bit higher. So we'll change it to -55. And then to take it out of the scope of our container, we'll set the position to absolute. And now once we do that, we also see the text here. Then finally, we'll set the resize mode to contain. Now this should give us a full view of our bottle. Now to get our text down here and to get it off the bottle, let's apply a justify content property to the container. And we'll set the value to flex end. This should position the text appropriately. Now for the text, we want to ensure that it is in the middle. So we'll align the text to the center. Also, we'll give it a margin at the bottom of 5 pixels. Now for the price of the product, we want to style it a bit differently from the name. So we'll add another style rule, which we'll call price. And all we'll do here is to set the color. So we'll set it to our accent color. And then we'll lighten it a bit. Now we'll go ahead to pass the style to the price here. So instead of styles.text, we'll change it to styles.price. Now if we bring back our screens, we see that we almost have the look that we are going for. Now what is left is to change the actual data that is being displayed here. So before we do that, inside the product card here, let's save it and get rid of all the properties that we didn't use. Once we've done that, we go back to the home page. Now for this flat list, we are no longer displaying the deals. However, we are displaying the popular products. So instead of deal being true, we'll change it to popular being true. And that updates the product we have here. And then over here, inside the content container style, we no longer need the margin at the bottom, so we can get rid of it, like so. Once we've done that, and we bring back our screens again, we see that we have the exact same look that we were going after. Now let's handle the last section here, which is our collection. Now this is as easy as it gets. So over here on the home screen, we copy our flat list, and then we paste it below our collection header. Now almost everything will stay the same. The product card will stay the same. The only thing we are changing here is the data. So over here, instead of targeting the popular ones, we are targeting all our products. And now to limit the number of items that are displayed over here, we'll use the slice property. So over here, we'll call the slice method. So from our collection, we want to start displaying from index 0 to 5. And then the 5 is non-inclusive. So meaning it will actually be displaying from 0 to 4. So over here, if we scroll to our collection, then we check the product here, we should have about 5 products. And then on each of the products that you press, you should get the ID. Now at this point, we have the look that we targeted at the beginning of this video. So at the top here, we can get rid of all the properties and components that we didn't use. With this done, we are done with the looks of the home page, and then we can build on this in the next part. I'll link to what we've done so far in the description below so you can check it out.